What's up, guys and gals, and welcome to the next episode in our Splatterchats series. My name is Splattercat, and I'm happy to have you here today as we talk for a little while about selected topics that I've been observing and thinking about in my head noodle over the course of the last week. So let's you and I get started. This week it's going to be a very, very simple talk. We're going to be talking about the fact that Valve is now allowing Skyrim mods to be paid for through their Steam service. And so this was actually sort of unexpected, although at the same time the cynical part of me was like, yeah, it was only a matter of time until this happened. And so I'm going to take this chat a little bit slower than normal because I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I know there's going to be people out there who don't even know what a mod is, and so we've just got to disseminate a lot of information here before we can even get started with the actual talk itself. First and foremost, what is a mod? A mod is just unofficial DLC created by hobbyists in order to expand games that they already like. So Fallout 3, Skyrim, Mountain Blade Warband, Just Cause, all of these games have modding communities that go through and they spend their time and their expertise creating new animations, new textures, new scripts, new content, and anything else that you can think of to make the games that they already love better. In the case of most mods, they can be something as simple as making the main character look a little bit different or giving him a new skin, and they can be something as complicated as the Falscar mod for Skyrim, which adds a huge amount of just stuff to the game. And so when talking about this, you gotta be careful to keep in mind the breadth of what the word mod contains. It can be anything from something very, very simple to something incredibly huge that took an entire community years to develop. Now, typically modding and the development of new creations for games that are unofficial is seen as a thing that people just do for the fun of it, and they do it for free because they want to make the games better. I think if you talk to people a couple of years ago, you would have never thought of charging for a mod. I know a lot of developers have donate buttons, so when they create and they spend thousands of hours and they're sort of aggregating all this community information and all of these various projects into big mod packs, they'll take donations in order to compensate people for their time. But traditionally, it's something that has never been charged for, and so because of that, a lot of modders just create stuff for free because there's that public expectation. PC gamers like you and myself have grown accustomed to getting them for free as well. And so when Valve made this little gambit, or they made this little move to start making these into unofficial DLCs that are actually paid for, this has created a rift in the community. And so I think there's a couple questions we have to answer before we determine whether this is a good or a bad thing. Now, I'm going to tell you that I'm in the latter party. I think this is going to hurt modding very, very much, but let's answer a few of those questions. And so I think the one that's tearing the community apart right now as we speak, if you aren't paying attention to forums, or you haven't been up on the Nexus, or you haven't been watching just kind of like, I guess, the subtle waves flowing through the modding community right now, things are split up into two camps. The first says that modders deserve to get paid for their work, and when you're doing a large-scale product, that you're taking a considerable amount of your own profitable time or your free time and you're putting it into this thing, and so why not get paid for it as well? That would be living the dream. The second party is the one that says that modding should never be paid for. It creates licensing issues, it creates copyright issues, and plus, they just plain don't like paying for it because mods have always been free, and this is a change in a direction that they don't like. And so I think the first question that needs to be addressed by the community is, do modders deserve to get paid? Because that seems to be the question that people are really, really grappling with. And so there are very, very vocal spokesmen for both sides of the aisle right now. For the people that say that modders should get paid, there are eloquent arguments being made about the thousands and thousands of hours it takes to develop a complicated mod for a game like Skyrim, something that expands, adds new lands, has voice acting, has all new quests, has all new content that all needs to be animated and scripted and everything like that. It represents a very considerable amount of time lost. On the other side, you've got the people that say, I've always developed mods for free. That's part of the fun for me, is just seeing what I can accomplish within the realm of this engine that this big company has put in front of me. The fact that I can make a product that's better than their product in my free time alone, or with a collaboration of 4 or 5 other programmers and artists and things like that, is part of the feat for me, and you could never get me to accept money aside from donations for it. And I think these two parties are actually very, very interesting, but that's the question that they're wrestling with, is, do modders deserve to get paid? And so in my opinion, I am going to give it right here. Typically, I don't go out on a limb on stuff like this, but I think that for small stuff like retextures and random things like that, those should probably just be left for free. But for me and my position on YouTube, it would be tremendously hypocritical of me myself to say that hobbyist programmers and hobbyist developers don't deserve to get paid, because I was a hobbyist video creator until it turned into my job, and so now what I do right here on YouTube is the way that I earn my bread and butter and feed my family. And so for me to go out there and say that modders do not deserve to get paid would be a hypocritical thing to say. That's quicksand for me. It's not a thing that I can do given my avenue of employment. And so I think for things like major rebuild mods that completely retool a game and completely change it around, while I would love for it to be free, and I think that if they choose to charge for those sorts of things, you're just going to see that stuff get pirated anyways. I think it's kind of a catch-22. You can try and charge for it, I guess, unless, Steam comes up with some kind of like DRM to check and make sure that there's like a signature on the mod that you've installed now through your Steam directory. I just don't see any way that they're going to be able to police that. But still, at the same time, it's hard for me to make an argument that people don't deserve to get paid for spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours working on something, because that's what I do on the internet. I create amateur content and then I collect a paycheck every month for it. So in an effort to avoid my own hypocrisy, I'm kind of forced into sort of endorsing the fact that they deserve to get paid. Now, at the same time, I love free mods, and so I'm of two minds right here. I think major rebuilds should actually be looked at by companies like Bethesda and the companies that make those games that are moddable, and in those cases, they should try and hire those people and bring that in as official DLC and convert it on over if it's good enough. And I think that's what you've seen from a lot of, well, from Paradox specifically. So if you look at Mountain Blade Warband, time and time again, when people come up with really, really good mods, Paradox hires those people, they bring them in, and then they make official versions of those mods. And I think that that's a situation where it works out well, and how well can be debated, because the last couple DLCs that Paradox has put out, namely Viking Conquest and I believe Caribbean, those were conversions of, standalone mods and things like that. And unfortunately, they just weren't that good. And so, unfortunately, I think there's two sides of the argument to get here. But I do think that modders that put in considerable effort and make a highly polished product deserve to get paid. That would be where I would stand off. If it's for small stuff like make my cape look different, or look, I added an NPC that allows you to vendor your gear in this way, that sort of stuff is such a small conversion that I just be like, yeah, I don't see any way that you could really monetize that in any way. And I don't think it would be... It feels like hobby work, therefore, I think you're going to have a tough time putting a price tag on it. But for something like Falscar, I think you could definitely get away with charging for it, and I think people would pay for it as long as the price was fair. It's just that the gaming community is used to getting stuff for free, myself included. I love free mods just as much as everybody else, so there it is. The second question that I think we're forced to deal with here is, will the insertion of money into the mod community make mods better? I think that's ultimately what we all want, is we want better content for the games that we already love. And I think that this could swing in either direction, and this is really sort of subject to a lot of conjecture. But there's a lot of economic principles that surround this whole thing. But as of right now, modding has been a labor of love. And so with labors of love, you tend to get the best work out of people because they're doing it just for their own self-satisfaction. They're not doing it for any monetary reward. And so the optimistic part of me wants to say that once money becomes involved, people will feel more dedicated and want to make a better product because they know they're collecting a paycheck off of it. But the deep, dark, just dirty, cynical part of myself that's probably more right than the former would like to say that the addition of money will make people squeeze out projects as fast as possible in order to maximize their profits. And so I think this could swing in either direction. It's very difficult for me to say whether it'll make it better or not, but we've gotten fantastic work out of people for free just as a labor of love, and I think I'm leaning more towards the cynical edge of my mind when it comes to this. I think that you're going to have perverse incentives here. If you don't know what perverse incentives are, essentially it's an economic principle that says that when you inject money into a situation, humans have the tendency to act in a way that perverts the original intent. And so the example that I would give you is when paleontologists first went to China in order to unearth dinosaur bones, they paid out bounties on dinosaur bones that the peasants would go out and dig up. The way that they messed this up is that they just paid for dinosaur bones. They didn't have any specifics when they did it. And so what would happen is the peasants would go out, they would find dinosaur bones, and they would bash them up to the point where they were unusable because they were getting paid a penny per piece of bone. And so they would make more money by bashing up the bone rather than by delivering it whole. And so because of that, the paleontologists had a lot of issues getting actually scientifically viable specimens back to the base camp because people started to pervert the way that the research and pervert the way that the bones were being dug up. Nobody can blame the peasants for trying to make more money. They're broke and they're just trying to turn around a profit digging up dinosaur bones. But at the same time, human beings have a tendency to do that. Another instance is where there was a bounty placed on rat tails in a particular colony. I don't specifically remember where. I'll try and look up the reference for this. But what people ended up doing is they started farming rats so that they could just kill the rats after they farmed them, and they bred rats specifically to harvest the tails off so that they could go turn them in for the bounty. And so I think that any time that the human mind and money cross with each other, you get a worse result out. And so ultimately, I don't think mods will get better from this situation. I think I'm going to err on the side of being cynical and say that they're probably going to get a lot worse, and you're going to see a lot more, and we already have up on Steam. You're seeing all kinds of just cash grab mods going up because there's no checks and balances on the quality of the product being offered. I guess the final question that you need to ask about this situation is, has Valve killed modding? Because I've seen a number of articles sort of allude to that fact, that this is going to be sort of the nail in the coffin for modding, and it's all going to turn into this giant corporate cash grab, you know, money on a conveyor belt type situation. I don't think so. I'd like to hope that they haven't killed modding. It's far too early to tell. Like, let's just keep everything in perspective right now, because I don't want to fall victim to sensationalizing the issue. Steam has tested this now with one game. Yes, a very, very popular game, an incredibly popular modding game, and they're testing the waters right now. There's already a petition going with like almost 100,000 signatures to have this removed, just to try and stamp it out before it gets too much momentum. But I think they're testing things for right now, and I don't think that they've killed modding. You have seen a lot of mods be pulled off the Nexus. If you don't know what the Nexus is essentially a hosting area for like all mods, for games, everything you can think of that can be modded. It's got mods up on the Nexus, and you have seen some people pulling their mods off the Nexus to offer them exclusively through Steam. I think there's going to be a fire sale on that early on, but I think more so what this is going to do is it's not going to kill modding. It's going to create a large rift, as there is, for example, I used to program, and there was a large rift between black hat programmers and white hat programmers. Like, the two groups don't really like each other, they don't associate. I think what you're going to see right here is you're going to see a rift in the community. There's still going to be hobbyist modders who do what they do because they love to do it in their free time. And then I think you're going to see a lot of people moving over to the paid aspects as well. And there's not really going to be a whole lot of ways to police who's right and who's wrong, so long as the product being offered is polished and well designed. However, there are a lot of issues to think about right here. How do you deal with updates? Do you pay for the updates to your mod? When you buy the mod for the first time, are all the mods from there on out, are all the updates to the mod from there on out free as well? So if you buy the 1.0 version of a mod on Steam, when they update it, do you get all the later updates, or can you charge for each iteration that goes along? Do you charge for compatibility issues? If you get a mod that's not compatible with another mod and you paid for both, how does that interact? There's a lot of confusing things right here, and in addition, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Steam and Bethesda are pocketing a huge amount of the profits off of this right now. The modder is only getting a 25% cut off of any of this, and I really think that modders should hold out for a better deal. As of right now, you're getting paid pennies on the dollars for what Bethesda and Steam are making. Bethesda is essentially giving you an open license to create official DLC for them now, and then taking the lion's share of the deal. And so honestly, I think modders should hold out on it, but I don't think that they've killed modding. I think that they've definitely sent a shockwave through the modding community, and they've changed the topography a little bit, but we're gonna have to see how the water runs down the hill before we can finally say whether or not it's changed things in a way that's beneficial or negative. I'm against this. I don't like this at all. I will say that at the end of the video, just to sort of cover my ass, I do believe that modders deserve to get paid if they make a product that is commercially viable. I do think that there is room for little free mods and everything like that as well, and I enjoy free content as much as the next guy. I have to admit to that right now. And so I think this is kind of one of those wait and see situations. I don't like what's happening. I think a lot of other people are very sketchy about it as well. There's way too little fine print in all this. Most people complain about too much fine print. I think Steam and Valve, they need to go back to the drawing board, and they need to figure out ways to protect modders from being stolen from copywriting their material. Bethesda needs to come up with a way to give blanket copyright protection towards modders who create something that is very good that can be easily stolen. We need to come up with rules for, there's a lot of mod packs out there that aggregate a lot of different material and bring them all together, repackage them, make some minor changes, and then put them out there as a new mod. That's a very common thing in the modding community. I bump my mic. I do that when I get sort of voracious about the dispensation of wordage. So anyways, I think there's a lot of things right here that need to be thought about a lot better, and until Valve sits down and figures those things out, it's going to look like a cash grab on their part. It's going to look very greedy on their part, and they need to figure out a way to protect developers. They need to figure out a way to reward developers better. They need to figure out a way to weed out the shitty mods from the good mods, the ones that deserve to be paid versus the ones that are obviously cash grabs, that are obviously stolen from other more capable developers. And until they figure these things out, they need to shut the program down. They need to figure out a way to make this work without hurting the gaming community as a whole. But anyways, that's really sort of my summation there. I think we answered the 3 questions that are going to go along, and I think that most of those are leaning towards the fact that Steam allowing people to pay for mods is actually a bad thing, or at least to allow them to charge for mods is a bad thing. We'll have to wait and see what happens with it. I think that if Valve could come up with a system that pays, protects, and also distributes content in a better way, and also comes up with rules for updates and things like that, and compatibilities and things of that nature, I think that the system could work. It's not one that I'm really happy to put to bed. I mean, I enjoy free just like everybody else, but I guess that's out of my control at this point. I think that Valve has opened Pandora's box with this whole thing, and we've just got to kind of like watch what pops out Hope it's not too tentacly anyways, too, like, tentacly. Alright, let's do our Q&A. So if you could forget and replay a game, what would it be? Yikes. That's kind of a question right there that could really sort of spawn an entire new video log. I'd say that Final Fantasy VI would probably be the one that I would do again, just to, like, relive through that. But then again, my mentality would be different this time, so I don't know. I just don't know. That's a really tough question. Probably Final Fantasy VI or I like Fable too. We probably go with, I almost said Phalo because I was reading, like, it said Halo on my screen right now in one of the question things. Then I said Fable, and my brain does that where it combines things together. Let's see here. Have you ever had to deal with copyright claim problems? Yes, sort of, but only recently actually. The copyright claim problems, I'm actually immune to them because of my representation, so all of my videos go around AdSense. So if you don't know what that is, so there's this thing when you put a video up on YouTube, it scans your video for sound waves or visual features that match things that they have in their database, and then it copyright claims you. Or it doesn't copyright claim you. People that say that they have the rights to that material will file copyright claims, and most of the time they actually don't, and if you fight them, you'll win. But the only time I had, so I just transferred from Curse Gaming over to Screenwave, which are essentially their networks that run different channels on YouTube. And in between there, I had no network protection, and so I was outside the copyright system, but in that brief, like, 1 week transitional period, I had a whole bunch of claims that got filed against me. I had to fight them all, and it took forever. It's a pain. I mean, they're never justified. The second half of the question is, if so, do you think they were justified or bullshit? They're almost all bullshit. They all come from, like, random companies. There's, like, these fake little companies that are started up with the sole purpose of sending out fake claims on content. And they're almost universally, like, over in the Eastern Bloc somewhere. And it's actually, like, big criminal enterprise. You just sit there and claim other people's stuff all day. And if they don't fight you, you get money off their videos forever. And if they do fight you, you just release it real fast. And they play a game of odds. And so if they claim 5,000 videos a day and 100 of them stick, they're making money off 100 videos that aren't theirs. It's pretty brilliant, actually, if you think about it in terms of being a criminal and just being illegitimate. But at the same time, they're almost all bullshit. I think I've ever seen, like, 2 claims that were legitimate. If it's justified, you can go to the developer's website and check, and they'll be like, yeah, we don't let you make videos. And if you didn't know that, you should have checked beforehand. So it's your fault if you get copyright claimed legitimately, but most of them are bullshit. Have you ever been to bet on either a dog race, horse race, turtle race, dog fight, or cockfight? No, I haven't. They bust people all the time up in, like, random areas here in the Bay for dog fights and cockfights and things like that because they're illegal here. And so I know that they're always clearing those things out. I think I went to Calaveras County one time for the Bullfrog Festival or something like that, and I think they race frogs up there, but I didn't bet on it. I think I watched it. It was pretty cool. It was enjoyable. Kind of an interesting question. Do you enjoy dog fights? Like, I hope not. I gotta find myself. This is where, like, all the professionality just falls off in these videos because I gotta go through these questions. I've been thinking about ways to aggregate all the questions and make sure that they're all in the same area. What Twitch people do you think should be related to you when you stream? What do you see yourself as besides a gamer? Well, I would have told you a skater back in the day, but anymore, now that my body done got all old, I'm not really into that anymore. I can't really get away with it. Honestly, I work out a lot. Like, I'm a big gym rat, and so I'm constantly working out and doing pull-ups and push-ups and on jogs and things like that. I really enjoy it. That was from my dad, because my dad's a triathlete, so I always kind of feel guilty. I always feel lazy around him, because he does, like, a super physical job in real life, and then when he gets home, he runs, like, 16 miles and stuff every day. It's super brutal. I'm just like, well, maybe I should, like, work out more and, like, be more active or something so I don't feel guilty. So our last question today, this is actually, I think this one has rambling possibilities, but it says, I'm in love with the most amazing girl. She used to have feelings towards me, but lately I feel like I've messed up and my ex is telling her to reject me, and at this point I'm falling apart about it. Could you give me some advice on my situation? And so I don't know how old this person is. Your name is Hunter Stewart, I guess, so I'm going to say, Hunter, it's like this. There are a lot of things in life that people respond to, and my advice on your situation is that the number one thing that people respond to in life is self-confidence. And if you have self-confidence, things like these won't affect you quite so much anymore. Yeah, they'll still sting, it'll still hurt for a little while, but at the same time, self-confidence is key. And so what I would say for you to do in this situation, it sounds like there's drama running along the side, but I would just talk to this girl and I'd be like, listen, I would make my opinion about her known. My feelings known. I would say, listen, I like you. I think you're pretty, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I'd love to get to know you better. And I know my ex is up in your ear, just talking with the yammer, doing whatever it is that she's doing. But just realize she's not going to say anything nice about me because we have a history. And so it'd be really awesome if we could go out, spend a little bit of time together, and we could get past all that. But if not, you have to have the self-confidence to know that if she's not going to give you the time of day, why would you give her the time of day? Because one thing that comes along with self-confidence is knowing that you're worth it. And so if she doesn't think that you're worth it, why would you think that she's worth it? You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like at a certain point, once you start to get older and you start to get used to these situations, like water off a duck's back, to the point where even after you get out of like semi-long-term relationships, you're just kind of like, meh, on to the next. And so anyways, I would say to work on yourself. Like if this girl does not give you a chance, so basically, let me go ahead and collate my advice here. First, self-confidence. 2, make your feelings known. Let her know what's going on. Let her know that she needs to just sort of like dissociate herself from your ex's drama. And if she wants to give you a chance, that'll be awesome. And then after that, you have self-confidence. Like work on that self-confidence. Get yourself up in there to the point where if she shoots you down, it's not going to destroy you that much because you know you're a catch, right? So if she doesn't know that you're a catch, well, that's her problem and you can move on and meet somebody else. But I hope you start feeling better. I don't know how old you are right now, so this is kind of just like universal advice because I would target this very, very differently to like a 14-year-old versus a 19-year-old versus like a 27-year-old. Like I would give different advice. So that's just general purpose. You know, I hope it helps out. But that's going to be our last question for the day. I will see you all later. This has been Splatterchats number something. I don't know. We're in the double digits somewhere. I am working on something cool. I'm going to get a camcorder this week. I'm getting like a capture card and some other cool stuff. We're going to start doing a new show maybe this week, maybe next week. It depends how fast I can get it all shipped here. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope it works out, and I'll see you all next week. This has been Splatterchats. Hi to everybody. I'll see you next time.